Harvey Alexander was 39 years old and spent most days under broken trucks inside a small repair garage off Federal Way in Boise, Idaho. People around him believed Vanessa had finally outgrown him. A quiet man, small income, no future. He drank burnt diner coffee at 5:30 every morning. His Ford F-150 rattled at every red light. His jacket sleeves smelled like motor oil and cold metal. What nobody knew was that Harvey had spent 3 years quietly building a national outdoor brand worth more than the houses surrounding his neighborhood. And the first time he saw Vanessa again after she disappeared with the children, she was standing beneath the giant illuminated logo of his company, holding Lily's hand while Ethan stared directly at him across the crowded Portland ballroom. Before we continue, tell me where you're watching from and what your local time is right now. And if you enjoy slow burn stories about betrayal patience and quiet revenge, subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow's story gets even colder. The porch light was on when Harvey Alexander pulled into the driveway. That was the first thing he noticed. Vanessa usually turned it off before 8, said it attracted moths and made the electric bill climb for no reason. She had complained about it 3 nights earlier while standing barefoot in the kitchen, scrolling through designer furniture on her iPad. Now it burned against the dark like somebody had forgotten the house entirely. Harvey killed the engine of his old Ford F-150 and sat still for a moment. The truck ticked softly as the Idaho night cooled around it. A cold wind moved through the neighborhood. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked once and stopped. He checked the dashboard clock. 9:42 p.m., later than usual. A transmission rebuild on a contractor's Silverado had taken nearly 4 extra hours. Grease still clung beneath his fingernails. His shoulders hurt. He could smell motor oil in the fabric of his jacket. Normally, Lily would already be asleep by then. Normally, Ethan would still be awake, pretending not to wait for him. Normally, Vanessa would complain that he tracked dirt into the hallway after work. But the house was silent. Too silent. Harvey stepped onto the porch. The wood creaked under his boots. No television noise, no dishwasher, no music from Vanessa's office upstairs. He unlocked the front door. The silence deepened immediately. Not peaceful silence. Missing silence. The kind that felt wrong before the brain could explain why. His eyes moved automatically across the living room. The framed family picture beside the fireplace was gone. The blanket Lily always left hanging over the couch arm was missing too. Harvey slowly closed the door behind him. Vanessa. No answer. Ethan. Nothing. He walked farther inside. The kitchen counters were empty. Not clean. Empty. The ceramic fruit bowl Vanessa bought in Seattle was gone. The expensive espresso machine was missing. Even the magnets had been removed from the refrigerator door. Harvey stopped moving. A strange pressure settled behind his ribs. He opened the refrigerator. Half a bottle of mustard. A carton of expired eggs. Nothing else. The sound of the humming refrigerator motor suddenly felt enormous in the quiet house. He shut the door carefully. Then he noticed the hallway. Lily's rain boots were gone from the mat near the stairs. Ethan's baseball glove wasn't on the bench anymore. Harvey moved faster, upstairs. His boots struck the wooden steps hard enough to echo. Lily's bedroom door stood open. The pink curtains remained. Almost everything else was gone. The stuffed rabbit she slept with every night had disappeared from the pillow. The little constellation stickers Harvey helped place on her ceiling were still there glowing faintly in the dark, but the room no longer looked lived in. It looked abandoned. Harvey stood in the doorway without blinking. A pale rectangle marked the wall where her drawings used to hang. He walked to Ethan's room next. Empty shelves, closet half open. No clothes, no backpack, no baseball posters. Only dust outlines where furniture had been. Harvey's breathing slowed instead of quickening. That happened when something serious hit him. His body became quieter, more controlled, more dangerous. He went downstairs again. The kitchen island held a single folded sheet of paper, his name written across the front in Vanessa's handwriting. Harvey. He unfolded it once. The note contained only 4 lines. I needed stability for the kids. You were never going to become the man we needed. Please don't make this harder than it already is. Vanessa. Harvey read it twice. No apology, no location, no explanation. Nothing about where the children were sleeping that night. Nothing about schools. Nothing about when they had left. He checked the trash bin. Empty. He opened drawers, several legal folders missing from Vanessa's desk. Then he noticed something else. The family laptop was gone. Not stolen randomly, chosen carefully. Harvey leaned both hands against the counter and stared at the hardwood floor. 3 days earlier, Vanessa had asked strange questions over dinner. Questions about the garage accounts, about the repair shop lease, about whether he planned to keep wasting time in Boise forever. At the time, Harvey had barely responded. He thought she was frustrated again. Vanessa often became restless whenever one of her friends upgraded houses or posted vacation photos online. Now those conversations sounded different in his head. Planned, measured, prepared. Harvey pulled his phone from his pocket and called Vanessa. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Again. This time the call disconnected immediately, blocked. He lowered the phone slowly. Outside headlights passed across the front windows and disappeared. Harvey walked into the laundry room and stopped. Lily's tiny denim jacket still hung beside the dryer. Forgotten. He touched the sleeve with rough fingers stained black from engine grease. For the first time that night, emotion crossed his face. Not panic, not rage. Something heavier. He sat down at the kitchen table. The clock above the stove read 10:17 p.m. Then he started making calls. First Ethan's school, voicemail, then Lily's elementary school, emergency after-hours district number. A tired administrative worker answered after several transfers. Harvey kept his voice level. This is Harvey Alexander. My children were enrolled at Timberline Elementary and Roosevelt Middle School. I need to verify something. Typing sounds filled the line, a pause. Then, oh. Yes, Mr. Alexander, their transfer paperwork was processed earlier this week. Harvey stared forward. Transfer paperwork. Yes, sir? Transferred where? Another pause. The woman hesitated. I probably shouldn't. Please, more typing. Then quietly, Bend, Oregon. The words landed cold. Not nearby, not temporary, states away. Harvey thanked her politely and ended the call. Then he sat completely still. The kitchen light buzzed overhead. Bend, Oregon, nearly 8 hours from Boise. Vanessa had not run emotionally. She had relocated strategically. Harvey stood up again and walked toward the living room window. Snow drifted lightly beneath the street lamp outside. He could see his own reflection in the glass. Grease-stained jacket, exhausted eyes. A man most people overlooked in seconds. Vanessa believed she already knew how this story would end. That was the first mistake she made. Harvey reached into his pocket and unlocked his phone again. This time he did not call Vanessa. Instead, he searched for one name. Claire Whitmore, family attorney, Boise, Idaho. And at 10:41 p.m., sitting alone inside the stripped-down silence of the house, Vanessa emptied. Harvey sent the first email that would eventually destroy everything she thought she controlled. Most people who knew Harvey Alexander remembered him in fragments. Oil-stained sleeves, quiet nods. A man standing behind the counter at Alexander Auto and Tire on Overland Road with a wrench in one hand and a black coffee in the other. Nobody remembered his voice very clearly. Vanessa used to joke about that. Sometimes I think you could disappear for 3 days before anyone noticed she once told him at a dinner party in Eagle, Idaho. Her friends laughed harder than the joke deserved. Harvey had smiled politely and continued cutting his steak. That was how he survived most conversations during the final years of the marriage. Quietly. Vanessa lived loudly enough for both of them. She liked expensive restaurants with dim lighting and impossible reservations. She followed interior designers from California on Instagram and talked constantly about elevating environments. Every 6 months, she rearranged the furniture inside the house because she claimed the energy felt stale. Harvey never argued about the furniture. He only cared when the kids couldn't find their backpacks afterward. The distance between them had not arrived suddenly. It spread slowly through years of small humiliations. Vanessa hated the garage first. Not because it failed, because it looked like work. The concrete floors, the smell of coolant and metal. The hydraulic lifts stained black from years of repairs. She especially hated Harvey's office in the back corner. A narrow room with old filing cabinets, faded Boise State football posters, and stacks of repair invoices. Successful men don't spend their lives rebuilding transmissions, she told him one winter night. Harvey had been sitting at the kitchen counter reviewing supplier receipts. You know what I mean, she added when he didn't respond. He did know. Vanessa believed visible success mattered more than stable success. The appearance of momentum mattered more than the thing itself. That difference had quietly poisoned the marriage long before either of them admitted it aloud. At first, Harvey tried. He attended networking dinners with Vanessa's clients. He wore uncomfortable fitted jackets she picked out for him at Nordstrom in Boise Town Square. He listened to conversations about branding, influencer growth, luxury real estate, and curated lifestyles. Most of the men there spoke constantly. Most of them interrupted each other. Most of them checked their phones every 90 seconds. Harvey rarely spoke unless somebody asked him a direct question. Vanessa hated that too. On the drive home from one dinner, she stared out the passenger window and said, "Do you understand how bad you make me look?" Harvey kept both hands on the steering wheel. "I fixed a rancher's truck transmission today. That's exactly what I mean." Rain struck the windshield harder. "You never sound ambitious." Harvey glanced at her briefly. Keeping 4 mechanics employed seems ambitious enough. Vanessa leaned back against the seat with visible frustration. "That's survival, not ambition." Harvey said nothing after that. He rarely defended himself during those years, not because he agreed, because he learned arguments with Vanessa only grew larger when fed attention. But there were things Vanessa never saw. After closing the garage every night, Harvey stayed another 4 or 5 hours alone inside the back workshop. At first it started accidentally. A torn hiking backpack. That was all. A customer had come through Boise while driving toward the Sawtooth Mountains. The shoulder straps on his expensive outdoor pack ripped apart after less than a year of use. Harvey examined the stitching while waiting for brake pads to arrive. Cheap threading, weak stress points, bad weight distribution. He repaired the backpack during lunch. The customer returned 2 months later and asked if Harvey could fix another one, then another. Soon Harvey noticed the same pattern. Outdoor companies charged premium prices for products that failed under real use. Harvey understood stress loads better than most designers. Years of rebuilding engines trained his brain to notice failure points instinctively. So one night he bought industrial fabric samples online, then stronger nylon webbing, then waterproof zippers. He taught himself stitching techniques through manufacturing videos after midnight while Vanessa slept upstairs. The first backpack prototype looked terrible, crooked seams, uneven straps, but the weight distribution worked perfectly. Harvey loaded 40 pounds of tools into it and hiked 6 miles through snow outside Bogus Basin. The stitching held. He kept improving. Quietly. Over 2 years, shelves inside the back garage office slowly filled with prototypes, backpacks, field jackets, camping roll bags, utility pouches, everything designed for durability first. No flashy branding, no trendy colors, only function. Harvey registered the company name late one Friday night after closing the shop. Alexander Ridge Outfitters. The filing fee cost him $216. He remembered the exact number because Vanessa complained about a missing dinner reservation the same night. "What are you doing back there every night?" she asked once while standing in the garage doorway. Harvey wiped grease from his hands. "Working." "You're always working. That's generally how bills get paid." Vanessa crossed her arms. "You know Dean Holloway makes 3 times your income in logistics consulting." Now, Dean had served in military transport operations before moving to Idaho. Harvey nodded once. Good for Dean. Vanessa looked at him for several seconds. Then came the sentence Harvey remembered long after she disappeared. "You don't have momentum, Harvey. Not anger, not screaming. Worse, disappointment." Like she had already decided what he would become. Harvey returned to organizing tools while she walked back toward the house. But after she left, he remained standing there in silence. Because she was partially right. He didn't move loudly. He didn't announce plans. He didn't perform success for other people. He built slowly, carefully. Like a mechanic rebuilding an engine nobody else believed could run again. 3 months before Vanessa disappeared with the children, Harvey attended one of her networking parties at a modern home near Warm Springs Avenue. The house belonged to a real estate couple who spoke constantly about Aspen and Scottsdale. Harvey spent most of the evening near the outdoor grill speaking with a retired contractor about snowmobile engines. Inside the kitchen, Vanessa stood with several friends drinking wine. They assumed Harvey couldn't hear them through the partially open sliding door. One woman asked if Harvey planned to expand the garage someday. Vanessa laughed softly. Harvey, she said. Another laugh. Then, he'll probably die changing brake pads. The women chuckled politely. Harvey stood motionless beside the grill. Smoke drifted upward into the Idaho night. The contractor beside him shifted awkwardly, but Harvey didn't react, didn't storm inside, didn't confront her. He only stared out toward the dark foothills beyond the neighborhood lights. Because by then, hidden beneath repair invoices and tool catalogs inside the garage office, Harvey Alexander already possessed product contracts Vanessa knew nothing about. Already had manufacturing samples arriving weekly. Already had private meetings scheduled with regional outdoor retailers. Vanessa thought Harvey was standing still. She never realized he had been building an exit the entire time. And now she had taken the children across state lines before understanding exactly who she had underestimated. Claire Whitmore's office overlooked Capitol Boulevard in downtown Boise. 4th floor, gray stone building, no decorative slogans on the walls, no fake motivational artwork, just dark shelves filled with legal binders and framed degrees from Georgetown and the University of Idaho College of Law. Harvey appreciated that immediately. At 8:10 the following morning, he sat across from her conference table wearing the same oil-stained jacket from the night before. He had slept less than 90 minutes. Claire entered carrying a legal pad and a ceramic mug of black tea. Mid-40s, sharp posture, calm eyes, the kind of woman who noticed details before most people finished speaking. She sat down without wasting time. "Mr. Alexander," she said evenly, "start from the beginning. Don't dramatize. Don't summarize. Just facts." Harvey nodded once. Then he began. The empty house, the note, the school transfer, Oregon. Claire interrupted only occasionally. "What exact time did you discover the children were gone? Did Vanessa ever discuss relocation before? Whose names are on the property title?" "Any previous custody agreements?" Harvey answered carefully, directly. No emotional speeches. No attempts to make Vanessa sound monstrous. Claire watched him closely while taking notes. That seemed to interest her more than the story itself. Most people arrive furious in situations like this. Loud, scattered, desperate to explain feelings instead of timelines. Harvey spoke like a mechanic diagnosing engine failure. Precise, controlled. When he finished, Claire leaned back slightly. "Do you still have the note?" Harvey handed it across the table. She read it silently. Then again. "She planned this longer than a few days," Claire said. "I know. Did she take the children before filing any custody modification as far as I know?" Claire nodded slowly. "That matters." Outside the office windows, morning traffic moved through downtown Boise beneath low winter clouds. Claire folded her hands together. "Interstate relocation involving children is not something courts enjoy surprises about," she said, "especially if one parent intentionally conceals location details." Harvey remained still. "She crossed state lines without notifying me." "Yes," Claire said, "but understand something important right now." Her tone sharpened slightly. "If you react emotionally, you help her." Harvey met her eyes. Claire continued. "No angry texts, no threats, no social media posts, no driving to Oregon and forcing confrontation in public. Courts reward consistency and documentation, not emotional theater." Harvey nodded once. "I understand." Claire studied him another moment. "You already started documenting things, didn't you?" Harvey reached into a folder beside his chair. Phone records, bank statements, screenshots, school emails, copies of utility bills, Vanessa's deleted moving expense notifications from their shared account. Claire's eyebrows lifted slightly as he arranged them neatly across the table. Not dramatically, just organized. "You prepared this overnight? I couldn't sleep." Claire almost smiled. "Good." She spent 20 minutes reviewing documents carefully. At one point, she stopped at a bank statement. "Interesting." Harvey waited. "Large purchase from U-Haul Boise 6 days ago," she said. "You didn't notice I rarely check that account." Vanessa handled household spending. Claire nodded again. Another document. Another pause. "She withdrew Ethan from school 2 days before leaving." Harvey stared at the tabletop. "She planned it while we were still eating dinner together." Claire didn't answer immediately because both of them already understood that part. Finally, she said, "Probably." The office became quiet for several seconds. Then Claire slid the papers back toward him. Tell me about your business. Harvey looked up. My garage. No, Claire said calmly. The other one. That caught his attention. Claire tapped a paper near the bottom of the stack. An overlooked invoice. Industrial textile samples shipped from Oregon. Addressed to Alexander Ridge Outfitters, LLC. You hide paperwork well, she said. But not well enough. Harvey exhaled slowly through his nose. It's small. Claire gave him a look that suggested she disliked inaccurate descriptions. How small? Still private. Revenue growing. How much? Harvey hesitated briefly. Mid-six figures last year. Now Claire leaned back fully. For the first time since the meeting started, genuine surprise crossed her face. You own a six-figure outdoor manufacturing company and still spend your days rebuilding transmissions. It paid for the prototypes. Claire studied him carefully now. Not as another custody client, as something harder to categorize. You didn't tell your wife no. Why, Harvey thought about the question for several seconds, then answered honestly. Because every unfinished thing she touched became a performance. Claire's expression remained neutral, but Harvey noticed the slight shift in her eyes. Understanding. He continued quietly. I didn't want this becoming another conversation about appearances before it was real. And now it's real. Claire opened another folder. When did you form the LLC 3 years ago? Any debt? None. Investors? A few discussions. Retail contracts? 1 signed, 2 pending. Claire nodded slowly, then she closed the folder completely. Mr. Alexander, Vanessa likely believes she left a financially limited mechanic with no leverage. Harvey said nothing. She may have made several serious legal mistakes because of that assumption. The heater hummed softly overhead. Claire stood and walked toward the office windows. Here's what happens next, she said. We file immediately in Idaho establishing objection to relocation and demanding jurisdiction review. Then we begin documenting every inconsistency in her timeline. She turned back toward him. And trust me, there will be inconsistencies. Harvey rose from his chair slowly. I just want my children safe. Claire nodded once. I believe you. Then her voice hardened slightly. But from this moment forward, every word matters, every text, every receipt, every silence. She walked back to the table and handed him a yellow legal pad. Start writing. Harvey looked down. Everything. Everything. Claire pointed toward the page. Dates. Conversations. Financial activity. School details. Witnesses. Timeline gaps. Courts trust patterns more than speeches. Harvey took the pad. He understood systems, patterns, documentation. That world made sense to him. Emotion did not. As the meeting ended, Claire escorted him toward the office door. Before he left, she spoke again. One more thing. Harvey turned. Claire crossed her arms lightly. Vanessa expects emotional reaction. Probably even wants it. It supports her version of events. Harvey remained quiet. Claire's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. But I don't think she understands who she married. Neither did Harvey anymore. Not fully. Because the man who spent years silently rebuilding products in a hidden workshop while everyone dismissed him no longer resembled the version Vanessa thought she left behind. Claire opened the office door. Then she said the sentence Harvey would remember months later during the Portland launch event. Quiet men, she said calmly, usually build the strongest cases. Harvey stepped into the hallway carrying the legal pad beneath one arm. Outside, Boise traffic moved steadily through the cold morning streets. Inside his jacket pocket, his phone vibrated once. Unknown Oregon number. Harvey stared at the screen for 3 seconds before answering. A woman's voice spoke carefully. Mr. Alexander? Yes, this is Melissa from Pine Creek Apartments in Bend. Your wife listed you as emergency contact. Harvey's expression didn't change, but every nerve inside him sharpened instantly. She had a minor issue with lease paperwork this morning, the woman continued. I'm sorry to bother you, but we needed clarification regarding cosigner information. Harvey walked slowly toward the elevator. Can you repeat the apartment address? The woman did. Harvey memorized every word. And for the first time since Vanessa disappeared with the children, Harvey finally knew exactly where she was sleeping. The drive from Boise to Bend took a little over 6 hours in winter conditions. Harvey left before sunrise. The old Ford F-150 cut through long stretches of frozen highway beneath pale gray skies while snow drifted across the shoulders of Interstate 84. Most people would have blasted music to stay awake. Harvey drove in silence, one hand on the wheel, one thermos of black coffee beside him. Claire Whitmore's legal pad rested on the passenger seat, filled with handwritten notes and timelines. Every gas station receipt went into a folder. Every timestamp mattered now. That was how Harvey approached problems once he understood they were real. Not emotionally, systematically. By noon, Oregon mountains replaced Idaho farmland outside the windshield. Pine forests thickened around the highway. Snow-covered rooftops in small towns scattered along the route. Bend appeared slowly through the cold haze around early afternoon. Clean sidewalks, craft breweries, outdoor stores on nearly every corner. The kind of city Vanessa always described as intentional. Harvey drove directly past Pine Creek Apartments once before stopping. 3-story luxury complex near the Deschutes River. New construction, steel balconies, covered parking. Exactly the kind of place Vanessa would choose if she wanted people to believe she had upgraded her life. Harvey parked half a block away beside a coffee shop and watched the building quietly through the windshield. He spotted Vanessa's new SUV first, white Audi Q7, temporary Oregon registration. Harvey stared at it for several seconds. She bought the vehicle less than a week after leaving Idaho. That detail settled heavily in his mind, not because of the money, because it revealed confidence. Vanessa believed the future was already decided. Harvey checked the time. 2:14 p.m. School dismissal would begin soon. He drove toward the address Claire's investigator had connected to Ethan's transfer paperwork, Cascade Ridge Middle School. The school sat near the edge of town, surrounded by wet pine trees and slushy parking lots. Harvey parked across the street near a fenced baseball field. Children slowly began exiting the building in groups. Loud voices. Backpacks. Parents waiting in idling SUVs. Harvey's eyes scanned every face automatically. Then he saw Ethan. The boy looked taller already. Dark winter jacket. Blue backpack Harvey had bought him 2 Christmases earlier. But something about his posture had changed. Ethan walked with his shoulders tighter now. More cautious. Less open. Vanessa followed several steps behind, holding Lily's hand. Lily wore a yellow knit cap with small white pom-poms Harvey remembered helping her choose at Target in Boise. Seeing her again hit him harder than he expected. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just physical, like pressure tightening beneath his ribs. Harvey remained inside the truck. Claire's instructions repeated clearly in his head. No public confrontation. No emotional scene. Document everything. Vanessa looked different too. More polished somehow. Camel-colored coat. Large sunglasses despite the cloudy weather. Hair carefully styled. She moved like someone beginning a new performance. The independent single mother. The woman who escaped limitation. Harvey watched Ethan say something quietly to her near the parking lot. Vanessa answered without looking at him. Then Lily pointed toward a bakery across the street. Vanessa smiled instantly for her daughter. That bothered Harvey more than anger would have, because Vanessa still knew exactly how to appear warm when people were watching. A black Mercedes parked nearby. A woman stepped out and waved enthusiastically toward Vanessa. Harvey recognized her after several seconds. Taryn Mitchell, lifestyle photographer from Boise, one of Vanessa's social circle friends. So Vanessa had already started rebuilding her network here, quickly, deliberately. Harvey reached for the legal pad beside him and wrote down the license plate number of the Audi. Then the Mercedes. Then the exact dismissal time, 2:41 p.m. Details mattered. The children crossed the parking lot. Lily skipped briefly through slush before Vanessa corrected her sharply. Ethan glanced toward the road absent-mindedly, then froze. Harvey saw the exact second recognition hit him. The boy stopped walking. Vanessa continued 3 steps before noticing. Ethan stared directly across the street, straight into the windshield of Harvey's truck. The distance between them suddenly felt enormous. Harvey didn't wave immediately. He only looked back at his son. Ethan's expression shifted 3 times in less than 2 seconds. Shock, relief, confusion. Then Vanessa turned. Her body stiffened instantly. Even from across the street, Harvey could see the color drain slightly from her face. For a moment, nobody moved. Snow drifted lightly between the lanes. Cars rolled slowly through the intersection nearby. Lily looked upward at her mother, confused by the sudden tension. Then she saw Harvey, too. Her mouth opened slightly. Harvey finally raised one hand calmly from the steering wheel. Nothing dramatic, just acknowledgement. Vanessa reacted first. She grabbed Ethan's shoulder hard enough for Harvey to notice even at that distance. Then she turned the children toward the parking lot. Fast, too fast. Ethan resisted slightly. Not openly, but enough. The boy looked back twice while Vanessa guided them toward the Audi. Harvey remained inside the truck. Every instinct in his body pushed toward the opposite decision. Get out. Walk across the street. Hold his children. Demand answers. But emotion created witnesses. Witnesses created narratives. And narratives became courtroom weapons. Claire had made that very clear. Harvey forced himself to stay still while Vanessa loaded the children into the SUV. Lily pressed her face briefly against the backseat window. Harvey saw her small hand touch the glass. Then the Audi pulled away into traffic. Gone. The silence inside the truck returned heavily. Harvey leaned back against the seat and exhaled slowly. Not because he felt defeated, because now he understood something important. The children had not forgotten him. Vanessa wanted distance, control, narrative. But Ethan's face destroyed one lie immediately. The boy had not expected Harvey to disappear forever. Harvey started the engine again and drove slowly back toward Pine Creek Apartments. This time, he parked closer. A leasing banner moved in the cold wind near the entrance. Luxury living along the Deschutes. He watched residents moving through the building for nearly 40 minutes. At 4:03 p.m., Vanessa appeared again alone, carrying grocery bags. No children, probably inside already. She walked confidently toward the entrance until her eyes landed on Harvey's truck parked near the curb. She stopped immediately. The cold wind lifted strands of her hair across her face. Harvey stepped out slowly. Vanessa looked around instinctively first, checking who might be watching. That told Harvey everything. "You followed us," she asked sharply. Harvey closed the truck door. "You took my children across state lines. They're my children, too. You disappeared." Vanessa adjusted the grocery bags against her hip. "I left because somebody in this family needed to think about stability." Harvey studied her calmly. The Audi seemed stable. Her jaw tightened. "That's none of your business. It becomes my business when you vanish with Ethan and Lily." Vanessa laughed once under her breath. Not amused, dismissive. "You still don't understand Harvey." "Then explain. You were never going anywhere." Snowflakes drifted between them. Vanessa glanced toward the apartment windows again before continuing. "You were comfortable staying exactly the same forever. Same garage, same truck, same routine." Harvey said nothing. "That might be enough for you," she said. "But I wasn't going to let the kids grow up believing survival is ambition." Harvey watched her carefully while she spoke. Not the words, the rehearsed confidence behind them. Vanessa had been practicing this justification for weeks, maybe months. Finally, Harvey asked quietly, "Did you tell the children I abandoned them?" Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "I told them the truth. That's not what I asked." The silence stretched. Then Vanessa shifted the grocery bags again. "You should leave Harvey." He nodded once. "I will." She seemed surprised by that. No shouting, no pleading, no threat. Harvey opened the truck door. But before getting inside, he looked at her one final time. "You should hire a lawyer." For the first time since the conversation started, uncertainty crossed Vanessa's face. Small, quick, but real. Then Harvey drove away through the falling snow, while Vanessa remained standing near the apartment entrance, watching his taillights disappear into the Oregon dusk. And somewhere behind the illuminated windows above her, Ethan Alexander was almost certainly standing in silence, wondering why his father had come all that way, only to leave again. The first post appeared 3 days after Harvey returned from Oregon. Vanessa uploaded it at 7:14 p.m. A black and white photograph. Lily wrapped in a blanket beside a fireplace. Caption: sometimes protecting your children means leaving environments that slowly destroy you. Harvey stared at the screen without moving. The post gathered nearly 300 reactions in under an hour. Heart emojis, supportive comments, people he had known for years suddenly speaking like witnesses to a story they never actually saw. "You're so strong. Proud of you for choosing peace. Children always know who the safe parent is." Harvey set the phone face down on the kitchen counter. The house still felt wrong without the children. Too organized. Too quiet. Lily's room remained untouched upstairs. Ethan's baseball cleats still sat near the garage door where he left them before the move. Harvey had not moved either item. Instead, every evening after work, he sat at the same kitchen table beneath the humming overhead light and documented everything: dates, screenshots, times, contradictions. Claire Whitmore requested precision, and Harvey understood precision better than emotion. The next morning, another post appeared. This time, Vanessa included herself. Professional photography, coffee shop in Bend, soft lighting. One hand wrapped around a ceramic mug, while Lily leaned against her shoulder. Caption: starting over isn't failure. Sometimes it's survival. Harvey noticed the wording immediately. Careful. Non-specific. Designed to imply suffering without directly stating facts. That was Vanessa's talent. She understood emotional framing better than most marketers. By Friday, mutual friends had begun reaching out. Not to ask questions, to make assumptions. One message arrived from Trevor Langley, an old neighbor. "Can't believe you let things get that bad." Another, "Honestly, man, disappearing emotionally is still disappearing." Harvey read every message carefully before placing screenshots into organized folders. He never responded impulsively. Not watched once. Claire had explained why. "People reveal themselves when unanswered," she told him during a phone call Thursday afternoon. "Silence makes liars continue talking." Harvey understood that instinctively. At the garage, business continued normally. Customers arrived needing brakes, alternators, suspension repairs. Most had no idea his family had vanished across state lines. Harvey preferred it that way. But information spreads quickly in cities the size of Boise. Friday morning, one of his mechanics, Luis Ramirez, entered the office awkwardly holding a phone. "You okay, boss?" Harvey looked up from an invoice. Why? Luis hesitated. "My wife saw some stuff online." Harvey waited. Luis shifted uncomfortably. "She said Vanessa posted about emotional instability at home." There it was, the first escalation. Harvey leaned back slowly in his chair. What exactly did she say? Luis handed him the phone. A newer post. Longer this time. Vanessa described years of emotional isolation, walking on eggshells, and raising children beside a man emotionally absent from life, still carefully avoiding direct accusations. But the implication was obvious. Harvey studied the wording calmly, then took screenshots. Luis watched him for several seconds. "You want me to say something online?" "No." "You sure?" Harvey handed the phone back. "People usually expose themselves if you give them enough time." Luis frowned slightly, but nodded. That evening, Harvey drove home beneath freezing rain and found a certified envelope taped to the front door. Family court filing. Oregon jurisdiction request. Vanessa had officially initiated custody proceedings. Harvey removed his wet jacket and opened the envelope at the kitchen counter. Inside were 12 pages prepared by Vanessa's attorney. Harvey read every line carefully. Several statements immediately stood out. Mr. Alexander demonstrated minimal emotional involvement with the children. Mr. Alexander prioritized work over family engagement. Mr. Alexander displayed passive behavioral patterns, creating instability within the home. Then came the sentence that made Harvey stop reading. The children have adjusted positively since relocation and expressed fear regarding return to Idaho. Fear. Harvey's jaw tightened slightly, not dramatically, barely visible, but enough, because now Vanessa had crossed into something more dangerous, narrative shaping involving the children themselves. Harvey picked up the phone immediately and called Claire. She answered on the second ring. "You got served?" "Yes, read it already." "Yes. Good. Don't react yet." Harvey walked slowly toward the living room window while holding the paperwork. She's implying the children fear me. I expected escalation. Harvey stared into the dark street outside. She's building emotional positioning for custody leverage. Claire's keyboard clicked rapidly through the phone. Then, did she make any direct abuse allegations? No. That matters. Harvey waited. Claire continued calmly. She's trying to establish perception without legal exposure. Emotional neglect is intentionally vague. She's using the children. Yes. Silence settled briefly between them. Finally, Claire spoke again. Did you respond to anything online? No. Good. More typing. Because Vanessa made a mistake tonight. Harvey listened carefully. She publicly connected the relocation timeline to emotional claims before formal hearings begin. That creates discoverable contradictions if evidence disagrees. Harvey understood enough legal language now to recognize opportunity when Claire heard one. She's over-explaining, he said quietly. Exactly, Claire paused. People telling the truth usually simplify events. People controlling narratives add emotional architecture. Harvey looked again at the custody filing. Fear regarding return to Idaho. The words felt rehearsed, manufactured. What do we do next? He asked. Claire answered immediately. We let her keep talking. The following week became stranger. Vanessa's online audience grew steadily. More posts, more carefully photographed moments, hiking trails, organic bakeries, children smiling beside rivers in Oregon sunlight. The comments became increasingly hostile toward Harvey, despite nobody hearing directly from him. One woman wrote, "Silent men are usually hiding something." Another, "A real father fights harder than this." Harvey archived every post without responding, every timestamp, every edit, every deletion. Meanwhile, inside the garage office, behind stacks of repair invoices, a completely different life continued growing quietly. Alexander Ridge Outfitters received its first major reorder from a regional outdoor chain in Spokane. 300 backpack units. Harvey reviewed manufacturing samples at midnight after closing the garage. Heavy-duty waterproof zippers, reinforced shoulder stitching, cold-resistant materials tested personally during Idaho winters. Work calmed him. Unlike emotion systems, could be improved logically. One night, Dean Holloway stopped by the garage carrying takeout containers from a barbecue place near Meridian. Dean dropped into the chair across from Harvey's desk and looked around at the piles of paperwork. You look terrible. Harvey continued reviewing supplier costs. Helpful observation. Dean smirked faintly. Then his eyes landed on the custody documents. She's going public with it indirectly. Dean leaned back. That's dangerous. For her. Dean studied Harvey carefully. Most people mistook Harvey's quietness for weakness. Dean never had. They met years earlier repairing generators during a winter outage outside McCall. Dean recognized competence quickly. You're documenting everything Dean asked? Yes. Good. Dean opened one of the barbecue containers, then paused. You know what's funny? Harvey looked up. She still thinks you're just the guy fixing trucks. Harvey said nothing. Dean shook his head slowly. She has no idea what's about to happen in the next year. Harvey returned to reviewing production numbers. No, he said quietly. She doesn't. Late that same night, another notification appeared on Harvey's phone. Vanessa had uploaded a new post. No photograph this time, just text. Healing starts when you finally stop waiting for someone to become who they promised to be. Harvey stared at the sentence for several seconds. Then he opened a separate folder already labeled, False Narrative Timeline. And while Vanessa continued building sympathy online, one carefully staged post at a time, Harvey Alexander quietly began building something much more dangerous. Evidence. Harvey Alexander slept less than 5 hours most nights after Vanessa left. Not because he stayed awake thinking about her, because silence created room for work, and work was easier to control than memory. By February, his days followed a brutal rhythm. Garage from 7 a.m. until nearly 6 p.m. Alexander Ridge Outfitters from evening until after midnight. Then paperwork for Claire Whitmore somewhere between exhaustion and sunrise. The back workshop behind Alexander Auto and Tire no longer looked like a repair space anymore. Large rolls of waterproof fabric leaned against one wall beside stacks of reinforced nylon webbing. Cardboard shipping boxes filled the corners. Metal shelving held backpack prototypes in different stages of revision. The smell inside had changed too. Less motor oil, more industrial fabric and machine heat. Harvey preferred it that way. At 11:43 p.m. one Tuesday night, he sat alone beneath fluorescent lights testing shoulder strap load distribution on a hiking pack prototype while freezing rain struck the roof overhead. A 40-pound sandbag hung from the pack suspended on a steel hook. Harvey watched the stitching carefully. No tearing, no stretching. Good. He made another note in black marker directly on the material. Double reinforcement near lower seam. Simple. Efficient. Dean Holloway arrived 20 minutes later carrying 2 coffees and a stack of shipping invoices. "You know, normal business owners hire employees for this part," Dean said while kicking the workshop door shut behind him. Harvey didn't look up. "Normal business owners also go bankrupt faster." Dean snorted quietly and dropped the invoices onto the table. Former military logistics had shaped Dean into the kind of man who trusted systems more than optimism. Broad shoulders, close-cropped gray hair, permanent habit of scanning rooms automatically. He picked up one of the backpack samples. Still better than anything REI's selling under $300. Harvey adjusted the hanging weight slightly. "Needs improvement." "That's your answer to everything." Harvey finally removed the prototype from the hook. "Most things need improvement." Dean leaned against the workbench. "You hear back from Portland?" Harvey nodded once. "Cascade Outdoor Retail Group wants a second review meeting." Dean's eyebrows lifted slightly. "That's not small anymore." "No, it wasn't." Cascade Outdoor Retail Group operated distribution partnerships across Oregon, Washington, Colorado, and Utah. Landing their support would move Alexander Ridge Outfitters out of regional manufacturing and into national positioning almost overnight. 3 years earlier, Harvey had stitched crooked backpack straps alone after midnight. Now retailers with 7-figure inventory contracts were requesting private demonstrations, quietly, without attention. Exactly the way Harvey preferred. Dean studied him carefully. "You gonna tell Claire the business is scaling this fast? She knows enough. She know you turned down the Denver acquisition offer." Harvey tossed the damaged prototype into a bin. "No." Dean shook his head slowly. "Still crazy to me." The Denver offer arrived 6 weeks earlier. Outdoor equipment conglomerate. Fast cash, full buyout. Harvey rejected it after a 14-minute phone call. Not because the money was bad, because the company wanted branding first and durability second. Harvey hated that instinctively. Everything he built existed because too many products failed once appearances mattered more than function. A phone vibrated against the workbench. Harvey glanced down. Claire Whitmore. He answered immediately. "Harvey. Need 15 minutes tomorrow morning. Something happened." "Yes." Claire's voice remained calm, but Harvey had learned to notice tension beneath her control. She filed supplemental declarations. Harvey leaned against the table. "What kind more emotional positioning?" He waited. Claire continued. "She's claiming the children feel disconnected from you because of work obsession and emotional distance." Dean quietly opened invoices nearby, pretending not to listen. "Any direct allegations?" Harvey asked. "No." Still avoiding specifics. It means her attorney probably warned her not to exaggerate beyond provable territory. Harvey nodded once. Claire lowered her voice slightly. "But there's another issue." Harvey waited. She submitted financial declarations. The fluorescent workshop lights hummed overhead, and her reported relocation expenses don't match available banking activity. Harvey's eyes narrowed slightly. "How far off?" "Far enough that I want forensic review." Now Dean looked up. Harvey walked toward the office doorway slowly. "You think she's hiding income?" "I think," Claire said carefully, "Vanessa is spending money she legally cannot explain yet." Harvey immediately thought about the Audi, the apartment, the sudden lifestyle jump. "Could be credit," he said. "Possibly," but Claire paused. "But people building false narratives often overspend trying to maintain them." Harvey understood exactly what she meant. Vanessa didn't just want escape. She wanted visible upgrade. a better life, a more impressive story. And expensive stories usually left expensive trails. After ending the call, Harvey remained standing quietly beside the workshop door. Dean crossed his arms. She's slipping, maybe. Dean nodded slowly. Good. But Harvey didn't feel satisfaction yet, because every legal development still moved slowly compared to the distance between him and the children. That remained the part he could not engineer. 3 nights later, Harvey drove through freezing fog toward a warehouse district outside Boise Airport. Alexander Ridge's first small manufacturing assembly operation occupied Unit 14 inside an old industrial building with cracked concrete floors and poor heating. Nothing impressive. Harvey liked it immediately. 6 workers stitched materials beneath hanging fluorescent fixtures while industrial sewing machines rattled steadily through the cold air. No music, no branding slogans, just production. A woman named Carla supervised quality control while wearing fingerless gloves against the cold. She handed Harvey a finished field jacket sample as he entered. Zipper alignment fixed, she said. Harvey inspected every seam personally. Strong, clean, functional. He nodded once. Good. Carla hesitated. You should probably start thinking about larger distribution if Portland works out. Harvey looked around the warehouse. 6 workers, concrete dust, folding tables. Years earlier, nobody would have imagined something national beginning here. Not even him. But systems scaled if built correctly. That was true for engines, true for manufacturing, true for legal cases too. At 1:12 a.m., Harvey sat alone in the warehouse office reviewing production cost spreadsheets when his phone vibrated again. Unknown Oregon number. He answered immediately. A small voice spoke first. Dad Harvey closed his eyes briefly. Lily. The sound hit him harder than he expected. Hey, Bug. Silence. Then Mom's asleep. Harvey straightened slowly in the chair. Lily. Where's Ethan? He's here. Movement on the line. Then Ethan's lower voice appeared. We only got a minute. Harvey gripped the phone tighter. You okay? Another pause. We saw your truck. Harvey stared at the warehouse floor. I know. Mom got really mad after. Harvey chose his next words carefully. You don't need to worry about adult problems. That's what adults always say. The sentence sounded older than 11. Harvey looked toward the dark warehouse windows. School? Okay. Fine. Not true. He could hear it immediately. Then Lily came back on the line quietly. Mom says Boise made her sad. Harvey swallowed once. What do you think? Silence again. Then I miss my room. The words nearly broke something inside him, but Harvey's voice remained steady. I know. Footsteps sounded suddenly through the phone. Movement. Then Ethan whispered quickly. She checks our messages now. The line crackled. Harvey sat completely motionless. Dad? Ethan said carefully. Did you really not want us there anymore? Harvey answered instantly. No. No hesitation, no speech, just truth. Another silence followed. Then Ethan exhaled softly into the phone, as if part of him had been waiting weeks to hear that answer directly. But before Harvey could speak again, a sharp female voice sounded faintly in the background. Ethan. The line disconnected immediately. Harvey lowered the phone slowly. The warehouse remained silent except for distant refrigeration units humming somewhere beyond the office walls. On the desk beside him sat the newest Alexander Ridge prototype backpack. Finished, strong, ready for market. And for the first time since Vanessa disappeared, Harvey realized the fight ahead was no longer only legal. Someone had already started rewriting his children's memory of him. The first court-approved video call happened 11 days later. Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Claire Whitmore had fought hard for even that much contact during temporary negotiations. Vanessa's attorney argued the children needed emotional stability before consistent communication resumed. Claire translated the sentence for Harvey afterward. She wants controlled access. Now Harvey sat alone at the kitchen table waiting for the call notification to appear on his laptop screen. The same kitchen, the same overhead light. But the house felt colder than it had a month earlier. Snow pressed softly against the windows outside. A pot of untouched coffee sat near his elbow beside Claire's yellow legal pad. Harvey checked the clock again, 6:29. Then the screen lit up. Incoming video call. He answered immediately. The camera image shook briefly before stabilizing. Lily appeared first, the sight of her almost physically hurt. Her yellow sweater hung loose around her small shoulders. Her hair looked hurriedly brushed. One side stuck outward slightly near her ear, the same way it always did when she slept badly. "Hi, Daddy," she said quietly. Harvey forced his expression steady. "Hey, Bug." Ethan appeared beside her a second later. He looked older again somehow, tired around the eyes, more guarded. Behind them sat an apartment living room Harvey recognized from his drive to Bend. Modern furniture, gray walls, carefully staged warmth. Vanessa remained off camera, but Harvey knew she was nearby instantly. The children kept glancing slightly to the left between sentences. "Monitoring." "School okay?" Harvey asked. Ethan shrugged. "It's different," Lily nodded quickly. "My teacher has a therapy dog." Harvey smiled faintly. "What's the dog's name, Maple?" Lily almost smiled back. Almost. Then she glanced sideways again. Harvey noticed everything now. The pauses before answers, the caution, the emotional filtering children develop when they sense adults are keeping score. "How's baseball?" Harvey asked Ethan. "They don't start until spring. You still practicing?" "Sometimes." Ethan's answers remained short. Not hostile, careful. Harvey leaned slightly closer to the screen. "I fixed the batting cage net last week." A flicker crossed Ethan's face immediately. Interest, memory, normality. "You did?" "Yeah." The old support cable snapped. That thing always broke. There's probably a lesson in that somewhere. For the first time during the call, Ethan smiled slightly. Small, brief, but real. Then Vanessa's voice drifted faintly from somewhere off camera. "Keep conversation appropriate, please." The smile disappeared immediately. Harvey's jaw tightened almost invisibly. Still calm, still controlled, but tighter. He changed direction carefully. "What books are you reading?" Lily answered first. "Charlotte's Web. You still hate the ending." She nodded hard. "It's sad." "Some stories are." Lily stared downward at her hands. Then quietly, "Mom says sad things happen, because people don't change." Harvey immediately recognized Vanessa's language inside the sentence. Not Lily's. "What do you think?" he asked, gently. Lily looked uncertain now. Children hated choosing between emotional worlds. "I don't know." Ethan spoke suddenly. "Why didn't you come get us?" The room went silent. Even through the screen, Harvey could feel the atmosphere shift. Somewhere off-camera movement stopped. Vanessa was listening carefully now. Harvey looked directly at his son. Because this moment mattered. Not legally, personally. "You left," Ethan continued quietly. "Mom said you didn't fight very hard." Harvey breathed once through his nose before answering. "I've been fighting since the first night." Ethan frowned slightly. "Then why are we still here? Because courts move slower than lies, because truth requires patience, because adults weaponize confusion sometimes." Harvey thought all of those things, but children deserve simpler truths. "I wanted to make sure I did things the right way," he said calmly. Another silence. Lily picked at the sleeve of her sweater. Then Ethan asked the question Harvey feared most. "Did you want us to leave number immediate, absolute?" Harvey didn't hesitate even half a second. "No," he repeated. Ethan looked downward after that. Like some invisible pressure inside him loosened slightly. From somewhere off camera, Vanessa finally entered the frame. Only partially at first. One hand resting against the couch. Perfect makeup. Controlled expression. The version of herself she showed publicly. "Let's keep things emotionally safe," she said evenly. Harvey looked at her through the screen. "That sounds important to you lately." Vanessa ignored the remark. Lily shifted closer toward her mother automatically. Conditioning. Harvey noticed that too. "How's Boise?" Ethan asked suddenly. The question surprised him. Cold Harvey answered. "Garage still busy." "Always, you still got the old Coke machine." Harvey almost smiled. "Still steals dollar bills." That earned another tiny smile from Ethan. Vanessa interrupted quickly afterward. "We're not here to romanticize old routines." Harvey leaned back slightly in his chair. Interesting wording again. Not memories, not home. Routines. Vanessa always reduced stable things into smaller language. "How are they sleeping?" Harvey asked calmly. Vanessa answered before the children could. "They're adjusting well." But Ethan looked away immediately, and Lily rubbed her eyes. Harvey noticed both. Children often answered questions silently, long before adults spoke for them. Then Lily leaned closer to the camera. "Daddy, yeah." Her voice dropped softer. "When are you coming?" The question hung heavily in the apartment silence. Vanessa's face tightened instantly. "We talked about that," she said sharply. Lily shrank back slightly. Harvey's eyes hardened for the first time during the call. Very small change, but visible. "I'm working on it," he answered carefully. "How long?" "Soon as I can." Vanessa crossed her arms now. "That's vague." Harvey ignored her. Lily stared at the screen with exhausted eyes. Then quietly, "Mom says we shouldn't trust promises." The sentence landed like cold steel. Not because of the words themselves, because Lily sounded guilty saying them, like she already knew they would hurt him. Harvey remained still for several seconds. He could feel anger trying to rise beneath his ribs now. Real anger, not for himself, for what repeated emotional shaping was doing to the children. But anger without control destroyed evidence, destroyed credibility, destroyed outcomes. So Harvey forced his voice calm again. "You can always trust one thing." Lily blinked slowly. "What?" "That I love you." Silence. Even Vanessa said nothing for a moment. Then Ethan looked directly into the camera, straight at his father. And Harvey saw it clearly then. The boy was trying to decide which version of reality felt more honest. The emotional story being built around him, or the quiet man who never raised his voice. A loud noise sounded somewhere inside the apartment. Vanessa immediately stood. "Okay, that's enough for tonight." The children looked disappointed instantly, especially Lily. "But time's up." Harvey glanced at the call timer. 23 minutes. 3 minutes shorter than court agreement. He noticed. Everything counted now. "Good night, Bug," Harvey said softly. "Good night, Daddy." "Night." Then Ethan hesitated. His face shifted slightly like he wanted to ask something else. But Vanessa stepped closer behind them. So instead he only said, "Take care of the truck." The call disconnected. The laptop screen went black. Harvey remained sitting motionless at the kitchen table afterward while snow drifted quietly beyond the windows. No television, no music, only the low refrigerator hum filling the empty house. Then he reached for Claire's legal pad and began writing. Call duration 23 minutes. Vanessa interrupted repeatedly. Children appear emotionally monitored. Lily referenced promises. Ethan asked if father wanted them gone, possible coaching indicators increasing. Harvey stopped writing briefly after that, because another realization settled heavily into place. Vanessa was not only relocating the children physically anymore, she was relocating memory itself. Carefully, patiently, reframing their father into someone distant enough to eventually disappear. And Harvey Alexander finally understood that silence alone would not save him forever. Eventually, the truth would have to stand in public. The first forged signature appeared on page 14. Claire Whitmore discovered it at 6:12 on a rainy Monday morning while reviewing school transfer documents inside her downtown Boise office. Harvey arrived 20 minutes later carrying 2 coffees and a folder filled with updated financial records from Alexander Ridge Outfitters. Claire barely looked up when he entered. "Close the door." Her tone told him immediately something had shifted. Harvey set the coffee down quietly and shut the office door behind him. Claire slid a document across the desk. "Look carefully." It was Ethan's Cascade Ridge Middle School transfer authorization form. Harvey scanned the page once, then again. Signature line at the bottom. Parent/guardian approval. Harvey Alexander. Except it wasn't his signature, close enough to imitate at a glance. Wrong under pressure. Harvey's real signature leaned slightly upward near the final letters. This version flattened unnaturally at the end. He stared at it silently. Claire folded her arms. "That your handwriting? No. You certain?" "Yes?" Claire nodded once. "Good. Not emotionally. Professionally. Like a mechanic confirming structural damage." Harvey looked up slowly. She forged school records. She appears to have signed your authorization for interstate transfer. Rain tapped softly against the office windows. Harvey felt anger again. Cold anger this time. Cleaner, more focused. Is that criminal? Claire sat back in her chair. Potentially. More importantly, it damages credibility in family court immediately. She opened another folder. There's more. Inside were apartment lease documents from Pine Creek, utility registration records, temporary medical enrollment forms for Lily. Each one carried slightly different timeline information, different relocation dates, different stated reasons, different financial disclosures. Claire tapped the papers carefully. She's rushing. Harvey remained standing beside the desk. She thought I wouldn't look. She thought you'd react emotionally instead. Claire removed her glasses briefly. People constructing false narratives usually focus on appearances first and consistency second. Harvey looked down at the forged signature again. Vanessa had not panicked when she left Boise. She planned, calculated, controlled. But now pressure was forcing speed, and speed created mistakes. Claire slid another document toward him. This is more important. Banking activity, joint account withdrawals. Harvey recognized the dates immediately. 3 major transfers during the 2 weeks before Vanessa disappeared. Nearly $28,000 total. His eyes narrowed slightly. She moved money before leaving. Yes, she never mentioned it. No. Claire tapped another highlighted line. And this account. Harvey looked closer. Private credit line approval. Issued in Oregon 4 days after relocation. Listed annual income significantly higher than Vanessa's declared earnings. She inflated financial disclosures, Harvey asked. Claire nodded. Either to secure lifestyle financing or maintain appearances. Or both. Probably both. The office grew quiet. Harvey walked slowly toward the windows overlooking downtown Boise. Traffic lights reflected through wet streets below. Normal Monday morning, people buying coffee, going to work, living ordinary lives. Meanwhile, every document on Claire's desk revealed how carefully Vanessa had been reshaping reality around the children. She planned this for months, Harvey said quietly. Claire didn't disagree. Likely. Harvey stared outside another moment. Then, what does this change? Claire answered immediately. It changes leverage. He turned back toward her. Forgery shifts this case away from emotional interpretation and toward factual misconduct. That mattered. Emotion could be argued endlessly. Documents could not. Claire continued reviewing paperwork. She also concealed relocation details from Idaho jurisdiction filing requirements. How serious? Serious enough that judges notice. Harvey sat down slowly across from her desk. For the first time in weeks, he felt something unfamiliar entering the situation. Not hope, momentum. Claire opened yet another folder. This came from your accountant. Harvey recognized the Alexander Ridge financial reports immediately. Quarterly growth summaries. Manufacturing invoices. Revenue statements. Claire looked at him carefully. You've consistently supported the household financially throughout this entire period. Yes. No missed payments, no instability, no hidden debt. Harvey nodded once. Claire tapped the paperwork. That matters more than social media captions. The faintest shadow of humor crossed her face before disappearing again. Then she reached for her keyboard. I'm filing emergency motions this afternoon. Harvey leaned back slightly. For custody, for immediate jurisdiction review, evidentiary correction, and judicial concern regarding unauthorized relocation practices. Harvey stared at her. You lawyers really hate short sentences. Claire ignored that. Your silence helped us. How? She kept escalating narrative while you accumulated documentation. Harvey understood that instinctively. Machines failed gradually before collapse. People did too. At noon, Harvey returned to the garage. The day felt strangely normal despite everything unfolding beneath it. Luis argued with a supplier near the service bay. An elderly rancher waited for oil changes beside the front counter reading Field and Stream magazine. Country music played softly through dusty overhead speakers. Ordinary life continued even while legal pressure tightened hundreds of miles away. Harvey preferred that. Stability helped him think. At 2:17 p.m., his phone vibrated. Dean Holloway. You sitting down, Dean asked immediately. Harvey wiped grease from his hands with a rag. Usually helps during phone calls. Dean ignored the remark. Cascade Outdoor just emailed revised projections. Harvey walked toward the office. And they want exclusivity discussions. Now that mattered. Harvey closed the office door behind him. Nationwide Pacific Northwest first, national expansion later. Harvey sat slowly at the desk. Alexander Ridge Outfitters had moved beyond possibility now. This was infrastructure, scale, real market positioning. Dean lowered his voice slightly. And there's another thing. Harvey waited. Portland launch event. What about it? They want founder presentation included. Harvey rubbed a hand slowly across his jaw. No. Dean sighed. You can't keep hiding behind product reps forever. I'm not interested in performance. You're the brand story now, whether you like it or not. Harvey hated hearing that because Dean was probably right. Silence followed briefly. Then Dean added carefully, the timing could help your custody case, too. Harvey's eyes lifted slightly. How public stability, verified business growth, professional credibility, investors, media. Harvey leaned back in the chair. Interesting, very interesting. Not revenge, positioning. Visibility changed perception whether people admitted it or not, and Vanessa still believed Harvey remained the same invisible mechanic she left behind. At 5:42 p.m., another email arrived from Claire. Subject line important review immediately. Attached was a newly submitted declaration from Vanessa. Harvey opened it slowly. Several paragraphs focused on emotional instability again. Then he found the line Claire wanted him to see. Mr. Alexander demonstrated little meaningful involvement in educational planning or child development activities prior to relocation. Harvey stared at the sentence without blinking, then calmly opened another folder. Inside sat scanned records from the previous 3 years, teacher conference sign-ins, science fair registration receipts, Little League volunteer forms, dental appointment payments, every school supply purchase, every medical insurance transfer, every signed parent authorization. Harvey had kept all of it automatically for tax purposes long before the marriage collapsed. Now those ordinary habits were becoming weapons. His phone rang again. Claire. You saw it. Yes. She overcommitted. Harvey understood immediately. She made factual claims. Exactly. Claire's voice sharpened slightly. Broad emotional framing is difficult to attack. Specific false statements are much easier. Harvey looked again at the declaration. Vanessa believed confidence could replace documentation. That strategy worked online, not inside court systems. What's next? He asked quietly. Claire exhaled once. Next, she said we start dismantling her timeline publicly through evidence. The word publicly stayed with Harvey after the call ended, because until now, everything existed privately. Hidden records, silent preparation, quiet legal assembly. But eventually, evidence stopped living in folders. Eventually, it entered rooms full of people, judges, attorneys, witnesses, maybe even reporters. And for the first time since Vanessa disappeared with the children, Harvey began realizing something larger was approaching. Not just a custody fight, a collision between performance and proof. And one of those things was much harder to fake once lights turned bright enough. The official invitation arrived on a Thursday morning. Cream-colored envelope, heavy stock paper, minimalist black lettering. Cascade Outdoor Retail Group cordially invites you to the private launch event for Alexander Ridge Outfitters, Portland, Oregon, Pearl District, April 18th. Harvey read the invitation twice while standing inside the garage office. Outside, hydraulic lifts groaned beneath the weight of a lifted Tacoma, while Luis argued with a parts supplier over speakerphone. Ordinary sounds. Ordinary morning. But the envelope in Harvey's hands marked the moment everything stopped being private. Dean Holloway walked into the office carrying inventory reports and immediately noticed the expression on Harvey's face. That bad Harvey handed him the invitation. Dean scanned it quickly, then exhaled through his teeth. Well, he muttered, there it is. The launch event was more than product marketing. It was visibility, investors, retail buyers, media, brand partnerships, public positioning, exactly the kind of world Harvey avoided naturally. Dean sat across from him. You can still send a representative. Harvey shook his head once. No. Dean looked surprised. You changed your mind. Harvey stared down at the invitation again. I think hiding looks worse now. Dean leaned back slowly. That's probably true. The legal situation had changed over the past month. Claire Whitmore's filings were beginning to pressure Vanessa's narrative harder than expected. Several inconsistencies in her timeline had already forced corrections through her attorney. Nothing public yet. But cracks were forming, and now Alexander Ridge Outfitters was about to become visible in a much larger way. That visibility mattered, especially because Vanessa still believed she had escaped a man with limited reach. At 11:08 a.m., Harvey's phone buzzed. Claire, you busy? She asked, never emotionally, usually mechanically. Claire ignored the joke. I need you downtown this afternoon. Why, emergency hearing schedule moved. Harvey's eyes narrowed slightly. Good or bad? Potentially both. 3 hours later, Harvey sat across from Claire inside a smaller conference room near Ada County Courthouse. Stacks of legal folders covered the table. Claire looked sharper than usual today, focused, fast. She's nervous, Claire said immediately. Harvey removed his jacket slowly. What changed? Claire slid printed emails across the table. Communication between Vanessa's attorney and Oregon educational administrators. One section highlighted in yellow. Concerns regarding authorization discrepancies. Harvey understood instantly. The signature. Yes. Claire folded her hands together. She's trying to minimize exposure before formal evidentiary review. Harvey scanned another page. Then another. Vanessa's attorney was now subtly repositioning several earlier claims, softening language, avoiding absolutes, retreating from emotional accusations that lacked documentation. Pressure was working, but Claire wasn't smiling. What's the problem? Harvey asked. She's still controlling public perception. Harvey looked up. Claire continued. Judges read evidence, but social positioning still influences pressure around cases. Harvey understood. Vanessa's online image remained powerful. Resilient mother. Fresh start. Emotionally abandoned wife rebuilding life. Meanwhile, Harvey still looked publicly like a mechanic from Boise with a quiet face and an old truck. Claire studied him carefully for several seconds, then asked, You attending the Portland launch? Harvey paused briefly. Yes. Good. You think it matters legally? Claire answered honestly, not directly. Then, but stability, reputation, professional credibility, public consistency, those things shape environments around cases. Harvey leaned back slightly. You want me visible. I want reality visible. That sentence stayed with him long after the meeting ended. Reality visible. For years, Harvey had operated comfortably in silence, building privately, working quietly, avoiding attention. Now silence itself was becoming a disadvantage. That realization bothered him more than public speaking ever could. 2 days later, Dean brought a tablet into the workshop during production review. You need to see this. Harvey looked up from shipment manifests. Dean turned the screen toward him. Instagram. Vanessa again. New photo. Professional lighting. Wine bar in Bend. Caption excited to attend an incredible upcoming outdoor lifestyle event in Portland next month. New beginnings deserve new rooms. Harvey stared at the screen, then at the tagged account beneath it. A Portland-based PR coordinator connected to the launch event. Dean whistled quietly. She has absolutely no idea. Does she know Vanessa believed she was attending another networking opportunity? Another carefully curated room full of upward-moving people. She had no idea the company hosting the event belonged to Harvey. Dean sat down slowly across from him. You gonna tell her before number? Dean almost smiled. That's cold. Harvey returned to reviewing shipment schedules. No, he said calmly. Accurate. The following week became a blur of preparation. Alexander Ridge Outfitters finalized product displays, retail catalogs, press packets, investor presentations. Harvey approved everything personally. No exaggerated branding language. No fake survival slogans. Just tested products with documented durability data. That alone separated Alexander Ridge from most outdoor brands already flooding the market. At night, Harvey practiced the launch presentation alone inside the warehouse office. Not dramatically, no stage pacing, just short sentences spoken aloud while reviewing product displays beneath fluorescent lights. Durability matters because failure costs more outdoors. Build products that outlast trends. Function first, always. Dean listened once from the doorway before interrupting. "You sound like somebody preparing to testify." Harvey glanced up. "Probably because I am." Meanwhile, Vanessa's online life continued expanding. More photos, more followers, more carefully staged resilience. She posted hiking pictures with the children, coffee shops, boutique markets, lifestyle branding language wrapped around ordinary motherhood. Harvey archived everything, especially one particular post uploaded 12 days before the event. Some men only understand value after they lose access to it. Claire read the screenshot later that evening and shook her head. She keeps speaking emotionally while legal scrutiny increases. She thinks public sympathy protects her. Claire nodded. That's usually true, until documents arrive. 3 nights before the launch, Harvey drove alone through Boise after midnight. The city looked different late at night, quieter, more honest somehow. He passed the old diner where he drank coffee most mornings. The Little League field Ethan used to play on. The elementary school where Lily learned to ride her bike in the parking lot after summer reading programs. Memories sat everywhere now. Not dramatic ones. Ordinary ones. Those hurt more. Harvey stopped at a red light near the river and checked his phone. New email. Event final guest confirmation. Attached guest list included investors, retail executives, media representatives, influencers, consultants. Then he found her name. Vanessa Alexander, lifestyle branding consultant, plus 2 guests. Harvey stared at the screen for several seconds. She was bringing the children. Dean answered on the second ring when Harvey called. "She's bringing Ethan and Lily." Silence. Then, "You serious?" "Yes." Dean exhaled slowly. "She's using them as optics." Harvey looked through the windshield toward the empty Boise intersection. She always understood appearances. "You still going?" Harvey answered immediately. Yes, because now the launch event had become something else entirely. Not revenge, not humiliation, collision. Vanessa had spent months constructing a public narrative around weakness, limitation, emotional absence, and failure. And in less than one evening, she was about to walk directly into a room built entirely from the life Harvey created without her ever noticing. Back at the garage the next morning, Harvey unlocked the office before sunrise and stared quietly at the old wooden sign hanging above the desk. Alexander Auto and Tire. Faded paint. Cracked edges. 22 years old. He left it hanging there intentionally. Reminder. Because no matter what happened in Portland, Harvey never wanted to become the kind of person who confused visibility with value. But visibility was coming anyway now. Fast. And somewhere in Oregon, Vanessa Alexander was still preparing carefully for an event she believed would elevate her future. Without realizing, she was about to discover who had actually built it. Rain covered Portland in silver reflections the night of the launch. The streets of the Pearl District glowed beneath neon signs and wet pavement, while black SUVs lined the curb outside the renovated warehouse hosting the Alexander Ridge Outfitters event. Inside, everything looked expensive without trying too hard. Concrete floors, steel beams, warm industrial lighting, large projection screens displaying mountain landscapes behind rows of outdoor gear displays. Minimalist branding, no exaggerated slogans, no fake ruggedness, just products. Strong stitching, clean design, real use marks intentionally left visible on sample packs and jackets. Harvey approved that personally. He hated polished dishonesty. At 6:42 p.m., investors and retail buyers filled the room holding whiskey glasses and speaking in low professional voices. Local media crews moved between product displays while photographers captured networking shots near the entrance. Nobody paid attention to the old dark gray Ford F-15, pulling quietly into a side parking space behind the venue. Harvey preferred it that way. He stepped out wearing a charcoal suit Dean forced him to buy 3 days earlier in Boise. The suit fit well. Too well. Harvey still felt uncomfortable in it. Dean waited near the rear entrance speaking with event staff through a headset. The moment he spotted Harvey, he exhaled in relief. Thought you might disappear. Harvey adjusted his jacket sleeve. Still considering it. Too late now. Dean handed him a small event packet. Press schedules inside. Investor introductions at 8. Founder presentation at 8:30. Harvey glanced toward the glowing warehouse windows. How many people? Couple hundred. Harvey nodded once. No visible nerves, but Dean noticed the tension anyway. You okay? Harvey looked through the glass toward the crowd inside. My kids are coming. Dean's expression shifted slightly. Right. Neither man spoke for several seconds after that. Finally, Dean lowered his voice. Claire already in position. Harvey nodded. She'll arrive before presentation starts, and the process server. Waiting on confirmation. Dean shook his head slowly. Hell of a night. Harvey didn't answer, because tonight wasn't about revenge to him. It was about timing. Truth arriving at the exact moment performance reached maximum visibility. Inside the venue, Vanessa Alexander stepped through the main entrance holding Lily's hand, while Ethan followed quietly beside her. She looked exactly like someone attending a high-level branding event. Elegant black dress, hair perfectly styled, professional confidence carefully measured into every movement. Lily wore a cream-colored sweater and looked overwhelmed by the noise and lights. Ethan looked observant, more serious than most boys his age. Vanessa paused just inside the entrance while photographers captured the room. She smiled automatically. Networking mode. A PR coordinator approached immediately. Vanessa. So glad you could make it. Vanessa shook hands smoothly. This space is incredible. The coordinator gestured toward the displays. The founder insisted everything feel authentic. Vanessa smiled faintly. Rare these days. She meant it too. Vanessa genuinely understood branding. That was why she never recognized the deeper irony surrounding her now. Because she still believed authenticity belonged mostly to presentation. Ethan wandered slightly toward one of the display tables while adults continued talking nearby. Large hiking packs sat beneath soft overhead lighting with product tags explaining material durability and cold weather testing specifications. He stopped suddenly, frowning, then touched one of the backpack straps carefully. Recognition. He knew that stitching pattern. Harvey used identical reinforcement designs years earlier, repairing Ethan's old baseball bag after the strap tore during practice. Ethan stared longer now, confused. Lily tugged Vanessa's hand. Mom, look. Vanessa glanced over casually, then froze for half a second. Not because of Harvey, because of the company logo. Alexander Ridge Outfitters. The word Alexander suddenly looked different to her now. Familiar, dangerously familiar. But before the thought could fully settle, another guest interrupted with introductions. Vanessa recovered instantly. Years of social performance made that automatic. Still, unease had entered her posture now. Subtle, but visible. At 7:26 p.m., Harvey entered through the side hallway near the production area. Most guests ignored him immediately. He looked too quiet to matter. No entourage. No aggressive networking. No flashy watch. Just a broad-shouldered man moving calmly through the edge of the crowd. One bartender mistook him for venue operations staff and asked where additional ice storage was located. Harvey pointed silently toward the rear kitchen, then kept walking. Dean watched the exchange from across the room and nearly laughed. Meanwhile, Vanessa continued moving through conversations while holding a champagne glass she barely drank from. Something bothered her now. The logo. The company name. The strange familiarity she couldn't place. Then Ethan suddenly stopped walking beside her. Again. This time his eyes fixed across the room. Vanessa followed his line of sight and saw Harvey, standing near the north display wall beneath a massive illuminated Alexander Ridge projection. For one suspended second, the noise inside the venue seemed to disappear around her. Harvey looked different in a suit. Not wealthier. Worse. Certain. Calm in a way she had never fully understood during their marriage. Lily saw him next. Her eyes widened instantly. Daddy. The word came out softly but clearly enough. Nearby conversations continued unaware. Vanessa's grip tightened around her champagne glass. Harvey remained exactly where he was. No dramatic approach. No smile. Just steady eye contact across the crowded room. Ethan moved first, one step forward automatically. Vanessa caught his shoulder immediately, too quickly, too sharply. Harvey noticed. So did Ethan. "Mom, stay here." Her voice sounded controlled, barely. But Harvey could already see the calculations happening behind her eyes now. Questions, connections, realizations forming too quickly to stop. Why was Harvey here? Why did nobody question his presence? Why was he standing near executive staff? Then Dean Holloway approached Harvey carrying a tablet and speaking quietly beside him. An event coordinator joined them seconds later. Then another. People were treating Harvey like authority. Vanessa felt the first real crack of uncertainty move through her chest. A photographer approached. "Can we get a founder prep shot before stage transition founder?" The word hit her physically. Harvey answered something quietly. The photographer nodded and walked away. Vanessa stared. Lily looked upward at her mother. "Mom." But Vanessa barely heard her. Her entire understanding of the room had shifted instantly. Every product display, every logo, every conversation happening around her. Alexander Ridge, Alexander, Harvey. No, impossible. But then she noticed the product cards more carefully. Field tested by founder Harvey Alexander during Idaho winter conditions. Her face lost color. Ethan looked back and forth between them now, understanding arriving slower but heavier. The room suddenly felt smaller around Vanessa, hotter, dangerously exposed. At 8:17 p.m., the lights dimmed slightly. A woman in a fitted gray suit stepped onto the stage holding a microphone. Conversation softened immediately. "Good evening, everyone," she said warmly. "Thank you for joining us tonight as we introduce one of the fastest-growing independent outdoor brands in the Pacific Northwest." Applause spread lightly through the venue. Vanessa stood completely motionless. Lily quietly moved closer to Ethan now, instead of her mother. The presenter smiled toward the crowd. "Tonight isn't just about products," she continued. "It's about durability, consistency, building something that lasts when most things don't." Harvey remained near the edge of the room beneath the projection lights. Still calm, still silent. The presenter lifted one hand toward him. "And now I'd like to introduce the founder of Alexander Ridge Outfitters." The pause stretched. Then Harvey Alexander. The room erupted into applause. And across the glowing warehouse floor, Vanessa Alexander stared at her husband in complete silence while the entire crowd turned toward the man she thought she had already left behind forever. Applause rolled through the warehouse while Harvey Alexander walked toward the stage. Not fast, not slow. Steady. The giant Alexander Ridge logo glowed behind him in white light against black steel panels, while cameras turned automatically in his direction. Vanessa remained frozen near the center of the room, champagne untouched in her hand. Ethan stared openly now. Lily looked confused more than anything else, because children recognized emotional earthquakes before they understood them. Harvey stepped onto the stage without acknowledging Vanessa directly. That mattered. Dean noticed it immediately from the side platform. Most men in Harvey's position would have looked at her first, would have enjoyed the moment. Harvey didn't. He accepted the microphone calmly and stood beneath the projection lights while investors, retailers, and reporters settled into silence. For a brief second, the entire room waited for him to sound different, more polished, more corporate. Instead, Harvey spoke exactly the way he always did, quietly. "Thanks for coming tonight. No performance, no dramatic pacing, just directness." The simplicity caught the room off guard immediately. Harvey glanced once toward the product displays lining the warehouse walls. 3 years ago, he continued, "I repaired a hiking backpack for a customer passing through Boise. Several people smiled politely. He paid $300 for it. The shoulder strap failed in less than 6 months." Harvey lifted one of the display packs from a nearby table. "I started taking products apart after that. Stitching, weight distribution, stress points." He ran one hand along the reinforced strap. "Turns out most companies spend more time designing marketing than durability." Low laughter spread through the crowd. Not loud, interested, real. Vanessa stood perfectly still. Every sentence tightened the invisible pressure around her, because she knew exactly where those nights came from now. All those evenings Harvey spent inside the garage workshop. All those late hours she dismissed as pointless obsession. They had not been wasted. They had been building this. Harvey continued. I didn't start Alexander Ridge because I wanted attention. Another quiet ripple of laughter. That part's probably obvious. More people relaxed now. The room liked him, not because he sounded charismatic, because he sounded real. That was much rarer. Harvey set the backpack down carefully. I built these products because I got tired of watching things fail under pressure. The sentence landed differently, heavier. Several investors exchanged quick glances. Vanessa looked away for the first time. Harvey's eyes moved across the crowd slowly, still calm, still measured. If something matters, he said, you build it to last. Quietly, carefully. Long before anybody notices it exists. Now even Dean felt the double meaning beneath the words. So did Claire Whitmore from the rear corner near the entrance. She arrived 15 minutes earlier wearing a dark navy suit and carrying a leather portfolio beneath one arm. Watching. Waiting. Vanessa finally spotted her too. And that changed everything, because Claire didn't belong to the business world surrounding the event. She belonged to reality, legal reality, the kind supported by evidence. Vanessa's posture shifted almost invisibly, fear entering slowly now. Meanwhile, Harvey continued speaking without once mentioning his private life. No humiliation, no indirect insults, nothing emotional, just discipline. We tested every product in real weather, real terrain, real failure conditions. Slides behind him displayed snowy Idaho mountains, damaged prototype packs, warehouse production lines. No glamour shots. No fake wilderness influencers. Investors loved that. Authenticity sold better than polished fantasy once enough money entered the room. A reporter near the front raised a hand. What made you confident enough to scale independently instead of selling early? Harvey answered immediately. Because durability and patience usually outperform hype. Another reporter asked about manufacturing growth, then supply chain expansion, then retail partnerships. Harvey answered every question with calm precision. Vanessa listened in complete disbelief. Not because Harvey sounded different, because he sounded exactly the same. The same quiet man she spent years dismissing at dinner parties. The same man repairing transmissions in oil-stained jackets. Only now the room treated those qualities as discipline instead of failure. That realization hurt more than anger ever could. Lily tugged gently at Ethan's sleeve. Daddy's famous Ethan didn't answer. He was too busy watching Harvey, studying him carefully, trying to reconcile two conflicting versions of the same man, the father described by Vanessa, and the one standing calmly beneath stage lights while hundreds of people listened to every word he said. At 8:47 p.m., the formal presentation ended. Strong applause filled the warehouse again. Several investors stood immediately moving toward the stage area. Retail executives followed. Press crews repositioned cameras. Harvey stepped down from the platform and was immediately intercepted by conversations from every direction. Congratulations. Expansion questions. Interview requests. Partnership discussions. Vanessa watched the scene unfold with growing panic hidden beneath controlled facial expressions. Because status was the language she understood best, and tonight the room had made its decision clearly. Harvey mattered here. Deeply. A tall man from Seattle shook Harvey's hand enthusiastically. Your numbers are incredible. Another investor added, Dean tells me REI's regional buyers are already circling. Harvey answered modestly. We'll see. But Vanessa heard every word. Regional buyers, investors, national expansion. The mechanic from Boise no longer existed inside this room, and worse than that, he had never existed the way she believed. Claire Whitmore began moving quietly through the crowd now. Not toward Harvey, toward the entrance, toward timing. Vanessa noticed that too. She immediately turned toward Ethan and Lily. We're leaving. Ethan looked surprised. But now, her voice came too fast, too sharp. Several nearby guests glanced over briefly. Vanessa lowered her tone immediately after noticing. Performance returning. Come on. But Lily looked toward Harvey across the room. Can we say hi first? No. The answer arrived instantly. Too instantly. And Ethan noticed that. Harvey noticed too. From across the crowd, his eyes lifted slightly toward them. Not aggressive, not confrontational, just observant. Vanessa grabbed her purse tighter. Everything inside her now screamed the same realization. She no longer controlled the room. For months, she controlled the story. Online sympathy, emotional framing, carefully curated victimhood. But this environment operated differently. Investors valued consistency. Professionals valued results. And reality had entered the room wearing Harvey's face. Vanessa started moving quickly toward the exit with the children behind her, but halfway there, Ethan stopped walking. Again. "Mom, not now, you lied." The words came quietly, still devastating. Vanessa turned sharply. What Ethan looked back toward Harvey near the stage. "You said he didn't care about anything." Several nearby guests shifted awkwardly after overhearing. Vanessa's face tightened. "I never said that. You said he only cared about work." Vanessa lowered her voice immediately. "This is not the place." But Ethan kept looking toward his father. He built all this. Lily stared upward silently between them. Vanessa's breathing changed slightly now, faster, less controlled. Then her eyes shifted past Ethan toward the entrance and froze. A man in a dark overcoat had just entered the venue carrying a legal envelope. Professional posture, calm expression, direct eye contact, process server. Claire Whitmore stood several feet behind him near the doorway, watching. Waiting. Vanessa understood instantly. The color drained from her face completely this time. Harvey saw it happen from across the room. Not satisfaction, recognition. The moment performance finally collides with consequence. The process server began walking steadily toward Vanessa through the crowded warehouse while investors and reporters continued talking around them, unaware that the real event of the night had only just begun. The process server moved through the crowd with the calm precision of someone who had done this hundreds of times before. No drama, no raised voice, just purpose. Vanessa saw him coming and immediately understood what the envelope meant. For the first time all night, she completely lost control of her expression. Fear replaced performance, raw, visible. Mom, Lily whispered. Vanessa grabbed her daughter's hand tighter. "We're leaving." But the process server reached them before she could turn away. Vanessa Alexander nearby conversation softened slightly as people sensed tension without understanding it yet. Vanessa forced her posture straight again. "Yes." The man handed her the envelope professionally. "You've been served. Simple, clean, public." Vanessa stared at the documents without touching them for nearly 2 full seconds. Then she accepted them with trembling fingers. The warehouse noise continued around them, but differently now. People noticed. Noticed the process server. Noticed Claire Whitmore standing calmly nearby. Noticed Vanessa's face losing color. Ethan looked between the adults carefully. "What is that?" Vanessa swallowed once before answering. "Nothing." But children always knew when adults lied emotionally, especially after months of tension. Harvey watched the scene from across the room without moving closer immediately. That mattered. He didn't want aggression attached to the moment. Claire had planned everything carefully: professional service, neutral environment, witnesses. No confrontation, only procedure. The process server nodded politely and stepped away. Vanessa looked down at the top page. Emergency motion for jurisdictional review, supplemental evidence filing, custody reassessment petition. Her eyes moved faster, then stopped. Forged educational authorization records. Vanessa's breathing changed. Ethan noticed immediately. "Mom." She ignored him. Reading faster now. Financial disclosure inconsistencies. Concealed relocation timeline. Misrepresentation of parental involvement. Each phrase struck harder than the last because Vanessa understood language, understood framing. And for the first time since leaving Boise, she realized somebody else had begun controlling the narrative, legally, accurately. Lily looked toward Harvey again across the room. This time Harvey finally started walking toward them, slowly. No anger in his face, no victory. That almost made it worse. Vanessa folded the documents quickly. "This isn't the place," she said sharply. Harvey stopped several feet away. "No," he answered calmly. "It's just where you happened to find out." Several guests nearby pretended not to listen. Investors suddenly fascinated by whiskey glasses. PR staff adjusting non-existent details. Nobody wanted involvement. But everybody understood something serious was unfolding. Vanessa lowered her voice. You planned this. I followed legal procedure. You embarrassed me. Harvey's expression barely changed. You moved my children across state lines. Silence. Heavy. Ethan stared openly at both parents now, trying to assemble truth from fragments. Vanessa stepped closer toward Harvey. You waited until tonight intentionally. Yes. No apology, no hesitation. That answer hit her harder than argument would have, because she finally recognized the pattern too late. Harvey had never been passive, only patient. Claire Whitmore approached quietly then, professional smile, controlled posture. Vanessa, she said politely, your attorney already received electronic copies earlier this evening. Vanessa turned sharply. You think this makes you look good? Claire remained completely calm. I think documentation matters. That sentence landed like steel. Vanessa's eyes flashed briefly toward the surrounding guests. People were absolutely watching now. Not openly, but enough. An image mattered to Vanessa more than almost anything. One investor near the bar whispered something quietly to another man while glancing toward Harvey. The shift in power inside the room had become undeniable. Months earlier, Vanessa framed Harvey as emotionally absent and professionally stagnant. Now he stood surrounded by investors and media while she held legal documents involving forged signatures and custody disputes. Reality had arrived brutally fast. Lily tugged lightly at Harvey's sleeve. Daddy Harvey looked down immediately. Hey, Bug! The softness in his voice changed her face instantly. Children recognized genuine emotional safety without needing explanations. Did you make all this? She asked quietly, looking around the warehouse. Harvey glanced toward the displays. Yeah. Lily blinked slowly. It's huge, Harvey almost smiled. Little bigger than the garage. For the first time all evening, Ethan stepped closer toward his father voluntarily. Not fully, but enough. Vanessa noticed. That hurt too, because emotional influence depends heavily on proximity. And for the first time since Oregon, the children were standing physically closer to Harvey than to her. A reporter approached, carefully holding a notepad. Mr. Alexander, sorry, is this a bad time? Dean intercepted immediately from the side. Very bad time. The reporter backed away. Harvey appreciated that. No public circus, no feeding spectacle. Vanessa folded the legal documents tighter in her hands. You've been building this entire time. Harvey looked at her steadily. Yes. You never told me. No. Why? That question lingered between them longer than either expected. Finally, Harvey answered quietly. Because you only respected things once other people applauded them. Vanessa stared at him. No response came immediately, because somewhere deep down she knew the sentence was true. Harvey continued. I wanted to build something real before it became visible. Another silence settled. Then Ethan spoke unexpectedly. You really own this company. Harvey nodded. Yeah, all of it. Most of it. Ethan looked around the massive warehouse again. The investors, the displays, the projection screens, then back at Harvey. You were working on this in the garage, Harvey almost smiled again. Pretty much. Ethan shook his head slowly in disbelief. And right there, Harvey watched another important thing collapse. The image of failure Vanessa spent months constructing around him. Not through argument, through reality. Claire glanced discreetly at Harvey, then toward the children. A subtle reminder, stay calm, stay measured. Harvey understood immediately. Vanessa suddenly straightened again. Defensive instincts returning. This changes nothing about custody. Claire answered before Harvey could. Actually, she said evenly, the evidentiary filings may change several things. Vanessa's jaw tightened. You think a business launch impresses judges? No, Claire said calmly. Forgery concerns them. That ended the conversation immediately. Vanessa looked away first. Another detail Harvey noticed. The room felt warmer now, despite the rain hammering softly against the warehouse windows outside. Guests resumed cautious conversation around them, but the atmosphere had changed permanently. Whispers spread quietly through the venue. Not scandal, exactly. Recognition. People sensed they had witnessed the collision between two different versions of the same story, one emotional, one documented. Lily leaned lightly against Harvey's side now without realizing it. Natural, automatic. Vanessa saw that too, and something inside her shifted again. Not guilt, fear of losing control. Harvey crouched slightly to meet Lily's eyes. "You hungry?" She nodded immediately. "Starving." "Thought so." He looked toward Ethan. "You?" Ethan shrugged, pretending indifference. "Maybe." Harvey pointed toward the catering tables near the rear wall. "They've got terrible mini cheeseburgers." That finally earned a real smile from Ethan. Small, but real. Vanessa watched the exchange in complete silence, because for months she carefully reshaped Harvey into absence, distance, emotional vacancy. And now the children were reconnecting with him naturally in less than 10 minutes. No manipulation, no performance, just familiarity. Claire stepped closer beside Harvey quietly. Low voice. "Your timing worked." Harvey looked toward the warehouse crowd. "No," he answered softly. The truth just caught up. Then Ethan moved fully to Harvey's side for the first time all night and asked the question Harvey had been waiting months to hear. "Dad." Harvey looked at him. Ethan hesitated briefly, then quietly, "Are we going home?" The courtroom in Multnomah County felt smaller than Harvey expected. Not physically, emotionally. Months of tension filings, accusations, screenshots, phone records, and carefully controlled narratives had finally condensed into one room with fluorescent lighting and wooden benches. No projection screens now, no investors, no applause. Only evidence. Harvey sat beside Claire Whitmore wearing the same charcoal suit from the Portland launch, though it looked different here. Less impressive. More practical. Claire preferred that. Judges trust restraint, she told him earlier that morning, while organizing binders across the counsel table, especially after emotional litigation. Across the aisle sat Vanessa and her attorney. Vanessa looked exhausted for the first time since leaving Boise. Not physically, structurally. Like maintaining performance had started consuming more energy than she expected. The weeks after the launch event changed everything. Investors continued celebrating Alexander Ridge Outfitters publicly across industry publications. Retail contracts expanded faster than projected. Portland business blogs called Harvey the quiet founder redefining durability culture. Vanessa hated every article. Not because Harvey succeeded, because she had spent years convincing herself he never would. Now reality contradicted her publicly every week, but inside the courtroom none of that mattered directly. Claire made that clear immediately. "We are not here to prove he's successful," she whispered before proceedings began. "We are here to prove she manipulated process and narrative." Harvey nodded once. He understood systems. Judge Eleanor Ramirez entered at 9:03 a.m. Sharp eyes. Minimal patience. The kind of judge who interrupted people when they performed instead of answered. Good. Claire preferred judges like that too. The hearing began with procedural summaries regarding jurisdictional conflicts between Idaho and Oregon. Then evidence started entering the room, slowly, methodically. Claire never rushed. That was part of her skill. Vanessa's attorney attempted emotional framing first. Fresh start. Maternal protection. Emotional strain inside the marriage. Children adapting positively to Oregon. Judge Ramirez listened politely. Then Claire stood, and the atmosphere changed immediately. She approached the podium carrying only one thin folder. No dramatic stacks, no theatrics, just precision. "Your Honor." Claire began calmly. "This matter is not primarily about marital dissatisfaction. It concerns documented procedural misconduct regarding interstate relocation and parental misrepresentation. Straight to structure, straight to facts." Judge Ramirez nodded once. "Proceed." Claire introduced the school transfer documents first, then the forged signature analysis. A handwriting specialist had already submitted verification reports comparing Harvey's authentic signatures against the relocation paperwork. The differences appeared obvious once enlarged. Vanessa stopped making eye contact with anyone after that. Claire never attacked emotionally. That made the evidence stronger. The petitioner represented interstate educational authorization using non-authentic parental approval documentation, she said evenly. Vanessa's attorney objected immediately. Characterization. Claire didn't react. Then we welcome forensic clarification. Judge Ramirez looked directly toward Vanessa's table. Was the signature authentic? Vanessa's attorney hesitated briefly. That hesitation mattered. Too long. Finally. There may have been misunderstanding regarding urgency of enrollment timing. Judge Ramirez's expression hardened slightly. Interesting answer. Harvey remained completely still beside Claire, not triumphant, focused. Next came the financial disclosures. Bank withdrawals, Oregon credit applications, contradictory income declarations. Claire walked the judge through timelines carefully using printed exhibits. This application states annual projected income exceeding disclosed family court declarations by nearly 40%. Vanessa shifted uncomfortably. Her attorney attempted explanation involving consulting projections. Claire responded immediately. Projected income does not explain concealed joint account withdrawals prior to relocation. Another silence. Judge Ramirez made notes rapidly. Then Claire introduced the communication records. This part mattered most to Harvey, not because of money, because of the children. The courtroom screens displayed text exchanges between Vanessa and friends discussing relocation weeks before Harvey discovered the move. One message read, "He won't fight hard enough to matter." Another, "The kids will adjust once we create distance." Harvey saw Vanessa lower her eyes immediately after that exhibit appeared. Then came the declarations. Vanessa's public emotional narrative began collapsing under direct comparison against documented involvement records. School conference attendance, medical payment histories, Little League volunteer forms, teacher communications. Claire presented them quietly, one after another. Mr. Alexander appears repeatedly throughout educational and developmental documentation despite declarations suggesting emotional disengagement. Judge Ramirez looked directly at Vanessa. Why would court filings claim otherwise? Vanessa finally spoke herself then. First time all morning. Her voice sounded thinner than usual. I was trying to explain emotional absence. Claire stood immediately. Respectfully. Your Honor, emotional interpretation is not licensed for factual distortion. Sharp. Clean. No extra words. Harvey watched Ethan and Lily's names appearing repeatedly throughout the evidence records. Science fair receipts, dental appointments, school supply purchases, ordinary fatherhood, documented quietly for years without expecting those records would someday defend his identity. That realization sat heavily inside him. The hearing paused briefly before noon. Harvey stepped into the courthouse hallway near vending machines while Claire reviewed notes nearby. Rain streaked softly against tall courthouse windows overlooking downtown Portland. Claire handed him a bottle of water. You're doing fine. Harvey looked toward the floor. This feels ugly. Claire nodded slightly. Custody litigation usually is. A long silence followed. Then Harvey asked quietly, Did I miss signs earlier? Claire studied him carefully before answering. Probably. Harvey looked up. But missing manipulation doesn't make you weak, she added. It usually means you assumed good faith longer than the other person deserved. That stayed with him. Proceedings resumed at 1:14 p.m. This time, Judge Ramirez questioned Vanessa directly regarding relocation communication. Why did you not inform Mr. Alexander before interstate transfer? Vanessa's answer came carefully rehearsed. I believed emotional conflict would escalate. Judge Ramirez glanced toward Harvey briefly. The quiet mechanic-turned-founder, sitting calmly beside his attorney, without interruption, probably complicated that narrative significantly. Then came the moment everything shifted permanently. Claire introduced the monitored video call transcripts. Especially Lily's statement, Mom says we shouldn't trust promises. And Ethan's question, Did you want us to leave? The courtroom became very quiet after that, because manipulation involving children sounds uglier when read aloud formally. Judge Ramirez removed her glasses slowly, then asked Vanessa, Were the children encouraged to question their father's involvement? Vanessa hesitated too long again. That kept happening now, because sustaining constructed narratives under legal scrutiny required perfect consistency. Reality rarely cooperated. By late afternoon, the judge issued preliminary findings. Not final custody determination yet, but enough. enough to change direction permanently. Temporary custody restructuring, mandatory interstate parenting coordination, expanded visitation rights for Harvey immediately, further review regarding relocation misconduct, possible sanctions pending continued investigation. Harvey listened quietly while Judge Ramirez concluded. The court values emotional safety, she said firmly, but emotional language cannot replace factual honesty. Vanessa stared forward silently. No tears, no dramatic collapse, just exhaustion. Months of control dissolving piece by piece beneath documentation. Outside the courthouse afterward, rain still covered Portland streets in gray reflections. Reporters waited near the front steps hoping for statements after the launch event publicity drew attention to the case. Claire blocked them immediately. No comment. Harvey appreciated that. This wasn't entertainment to him. It was his children. Ethan and Lily exited beside a court-appointed coordinator several minutes later. Lily looked exhausted. Ethan looked thoughtful, careful, older somehow. The coordinator spoke quietly with Claire regarding temporary arrangements. Then Ethan approached Harvey slowly. Dad Harvey looked down at him. "You hungry?" Ethan blinked once, then laughed softly under his breath. Court food smelled terrible. Thought so. Lily walked over next, rubbing her eyes. Without hesitation, she leaned against Harvey's side. Natural again, like her body remembered safety before confusion. Vanessa stood several yards away, speaking tensely with her attorney. For the first time in months, the children did not instinctively move toward her first. Harvey noticed that. So did Vanessa. The rain outside intensified slightly while courthouse traffic moved steadily along the street. Then the coordinator asked where the children preferred to ride during temporary transfer back to the hotel. Lily answered immediately. "With Dad." Ethan nodded after half a second. "Yeah." Vanessa closed her eyes briefly. Just once. Small movement, but devastating. Later that evening, Harvey drove carefully through wet Portland streets while Lily slept curled beneath a blanket in the back seat of the old Ford F-150. Ethan sat quietly beside her wearing headphones around his neck without music playing. The city lights reflected across the windshield. And for the first time since Vanessa disappeared with the children, the truck finally felt like a father was driving his family somewhere again. 6 months later, the porch light stayed on later than usual again. But now the house felt alive. Not staged, not carefully curated, lived in. Harvey Alexander stood at the kitchen stove just after sunrise, flipping pancakes, while Lily sat cross-legged on the counter, wearing mismatched socks, and Ethan argued quietly about baseball statistics from the dining table. Rain tapped softly against the Boise windows. The refrigerator door was covered in magnets again. School schedules, drawings, a crooked grocery list Lily wrote entirely in purple marker. Normal things, the kind people overlook until they disappear. "Dad." Ethan called from the table, "You're burning one." Harvey glanced toward the pan. "Character building. That's not how pancakes work. Depends how hungry you are." Lily laughed. Real laughter. Easy. Unforced. That sound alone made the house feel different. The custody situation never became perfectly clean after Portland. Real life rarely did. Oregon and Idaho courts continued coordinating structured arrangements through the summer. Vanessa retained partial custody rights, though the relocation violations permanently damaged her legal credibility. Claire Whitmore considered that outcome predictable. "Judges forgive emotional mistakes faster than procedural dishonesty," she explained one afternoon while reviewing final paperwork. Vanessa eventually stopped posting emotional monologues online. Not immediately. At first, she tried reshaping the narrative again. Privacy quotes, healing language, carefully indirect statements about misunderstood transitions. But the energy behind the post changed after the courtroom hearings. People sensed it too. Performance becomes harder once truth acquires documentation. Eventually, her social media activity faded almost entirely. Not because she stopped caring about appearances, because appearances stopped protecting her. Harvey never celebrated that part. Not privately. Not publicly. He understood something most angry people missed. Winning legally did not erase damage emotionally. The children still carried confusion from those months in Oregon, especially Ethan. The boy had become quieter, more observant, less trusting of emotional language. One evening in August, Harvey found him sitting alone inside the garage workshop staring at an unfinished backpack frame. "You okay?" Ethan shrugged without looking up. "Yeah." Harvey sat beside him on an old metal stool. The workshop smelled like machine oil and fabric again. Industrial sewing machines hummed softly from the warehouse beyond the walls. Ethan finally spoke. "I kept trying to figure out who was lying." Harvey remained silent. Mom sounded believable. Harvey nodded once. She believed herself sometimes. Ethan frowned slightly. "Did you hate her?" The question lingered in the workshop air between stacks of production materials and hanging field jackets. Harvey answered honestly. "No." Ethan looked surprised. "She took us away." "Yes." "Still not angry?" Harvey leaned back slightly against the stool. "Anger's useful for about 10 minutes, he said calmly. "After that, it mostly starts damaging the person carrying it." Ethan absorbed that quietly, then looked around the workshop. "You really built all this by yourself?" "Mostly." "Why didn't you tell anybody?" Harvey almost smiled faintly. "Because unfinished things don't need audiences." That sentence stayed with Ethan long afterward. Harvey could tell. Alexander Ridge Outfitters expanded faster than anyone projected after the Portland launch. Retail partnerships spread through Colorado, Montana, and Washington by fall. Outdoor magazines praised the company's durability standards and unusually restrained branding approach. Harvey still hated interviews, still drove the old Ford F-150, still spent mornings inside the original garage several days a week. The difference now was visibility. People recognized him occasionally. Investors called constantly. Dean Holloway complained daily about expansion logistics. "You know, normal CEOs don't personally inspect stitching anymore," Dean muttered one afternoon while walking through the warehouse. Harvey continued examining seam reinforcement. "Normal CEOs build weak products." Dean rolled his eyes. "We're shipping nationally now." "Exactly." Nothing about success changed Harvey's rhythms very much. That surprised people, especially the ones who previously measured worth through performance. The old Alexander Auto and Tire sign still hung inside Harvey's new executive office above rows of manufacturing projections and retail contracts. Visitors always asked why he kept it there. Harvey usually answered the same way. "Because engines taught me more than meetings." Lily claimed one corner of the office as her own by September. Colored pencils, small drawings, tiny ceramic fox figurines she insisted protected the building from bad business energy. Harvey allowed all of it. Employees loved her, especially because she treated warehouse workers and executives exactly the same. Children recognized authenticity faster than adults. Vanessa remained part of the children's lives through revised custody agreements and supervised coordination periods during the first several months. The relationship between her and Harvey became something colder than hostility. Controlled distance, necessary communication. Nothing more. One afternoon during an exchange outside a Boise Family Services office, Vanessa watched employees loading Alexander Ridge inventory trucks across the street. The company logo covered half the trailers now. She stood beside her Audi silently for several seconds before speaking. "I really didn't know." Harvey adjusted Ethan's backpack strap carefully. "I know." Vanessa looked toward the trucks again. "You hid everything." "No," Harvey said calmly. "I just stopped explaining myself to people committed to misunderstanding me." That answer stayed with her. He could tell, but Harvey no longer needed her to understand him correctly. That part mattered less now. By late October, the house felt fully occupied again. Lily's drawings returned to the upstairs walls. Ethan's baseball gear cluttered the hallway despite repeated arguments about it. The refrigerator stayed too full. Laundry accumulated constantly. Noise returned. Small, ordinary chaos. The kind Harvey once overlooked while trying to survive the collapse of his marriage. Now he noticed everything. One Friday evening, after a 12-hour manufacturing meeting, Harvey returned home exhausted just after 11 p.m. The house was dark except for the porch light. Same porch light he noticed the night Vanessa disappeared. He stood outside for a long moment before unlocking the door. Inside, the television glowed softly in the living room. Ethan had fallen asleep sideways on the couch beneath a blanket, while a baseball documentary played silently. Lily slept curled beside him, holding one of the warehouse sample jackets like a stuffed animal. Harvey stood there quietly in the dim light. No applause, no investors, no courtrooms. Just breathing, safe breathing. The thing he fought for the entire year. He moved carefully through the room, switching off lights one at a time. Kitchen, hallway, television. Then he carried Lily upstairs first because she was lighter. She wrapped one sleepy arm around his neck automatically without waking fully. After settling both children into bed, Harvey walked back downstairs alone. The house creaked softly around him. Outside, Boise rain moved through the darkness. Harvey paused beside the front door and looked once more toward the quiet living room, toward the backpack Ethan left on the floor, toward Lily's crayons scattered across the coffee table, toward the ordinary mess of a life rebuilt slowly instead of performed loudly. Then he reached for the porch light switch. And this time, when the house finally went dark, both of his children were asleep safely inside it again. Some people mistake silence for weakness because they only recognize strength when it arrives loudly. But real strength is often quiet. It looks like patience when chaos would be easier. It looks like discipline when anger feels justified. And sometimes it looks like a man rebuilding his life slowly while everyone around him assumes he has already lost. Harvey's story reminds us that truth does not always win quickly, but when it is supported by consistency, evidence, and character, it becomes very difficult to destroy. The people who perform confidence for the world often collapse when reality finally asks them for proof. Meanwhile, the people who quietly keep showing up, working, documenting, building, and protecting what matters, eventually become impossible to ignore. And maybe that lesson reaches deeper than courtrooms or broken marriages. Maybe all of us have experienced moments where we were underestimated, misunderstood, or judged too early. Sometimes the greatest revenge is not humiliation. It is building a peaceful life that no longer depends on other people's approval. If this story meant something to you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever stayed silent while someone else controlled the narrative about you? And if you believe patience, truth, and quiet resilience still matter in this world, subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow's story is about a man who lost everything in a single afternoon, and the one detail nobody noticed until it was too late.